morning. Today is Tuesday and we are on our way to a little town you are probably familiar with if you're in the northeast region of the United States at all, and that is Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Yes, that's where we are heading, and I'm sure you are familiar with the famous ground chuck Phil. Anyways, no, we're not going to see him. We are going to our church's district office, and my husband is going to be getting licensed in order to get his own church and be a minister. So that's where we're going, and it takes us through Cook's Forest, at least, which is just there at the lower end of the Allegheny National Forest. So it is a beautiful ride. It is rainy and it is overcast, but hopefully I can take a few pictures and maybe a little bit of video along the way, or maybe hopefully on the way back. But okay, I will talk to you later on today. Hope yours is a good one. He's driving me crazy. What? We're not going to be home for another almost an hour. I have been with this guy since 8 o'clock in the morning. I am ready to go home.
Well, we could have been there, but you wanted to stop.
No, that's not true. See, he got hungry and wanted to go to McDonald's. And I said, no, I don't want to eat garbage. So instead he takes me to this buffet that is just substitute garbage, right? Yeah. So anyways, yeah, we go there, and I probably took 3 bites out of everything because nothing tasted good, except their salads were very good. They had lettuce, and then they had all different kinds of salads, and toppings go on the lettuce. That part was good, but their food was awful. Their desserts were awful. So yeah, that was a waste of $30. What can I say? And yeah, because he has to hit every pothole that there is. The camera goes all over the place. Talk to you later. Who's excited? Who's excited to see their mommy? Who is? Has it been a long time? Good evening, everyone. I hope that your day was fabulous. And our day went very well. And yes, my husband was approved for licensing, so he is now pastor, not just Mr. And he is going to be given his license probably sometime at the end of his actual license. All that part will be done by the end of April, but everything is official, so everything went well, and we were blessed today. God is good. And today I want to read to you from Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. When we serve as Jesus commanded, using our gifts and talents to meet the needs of people around us, we become like light to people, pointing them to God. You know, I was reading a story recently, and it was about a quiet forest dweller who lived high above a village along the eastern slopes of the Alps. And this old gentleman had been hired many years ago by a young town council to clear away the debris from the pools of the water up in the mountains crevices that would feed the spring that flowed through their town. And this gentleman, with faithful regularity, patrolled those hills and valleys, removing all the leaves and the branches and that debris that would otherwise choke and contaminate that fresh flow of water. But as time passed, the village became a popular attraction for vacationers and tourists. Beautiful swans and geese would float along the crystal clear spring waters, and lots of businesses had begun to locate along the water's edge. The farmlands in the area were naturally irrigated, and the views from the numerous restaurants were lovely. But as the years passed, it came about that the town council met for its annual meeting, and as they reviewed the budget, one man's eye caught the amount, the salary of this older gentleman who was being paid to keep the waterways clear. The town treasurer asked, "Who is this man, and why do we keep him on year after year? No one ever sees him. And for all we know, this guy really isn't doing us any good at all. I don't think he's necessary any longer." So, by a unanimous vote, they dispensed with this gentleman's services. For several weeks, nothing changed. But early in autumn, when the trees began to lose their leaves and the small branches started to naturally snap off as the winds picked up, and they would fall into the waterway, hindering the flow of that beautiful, sparkling water. One afternoon, someone noticed a slightly yellowish-brown tint in what was clear spring flowing water. A couple of days later, they noticed the water was even darker. Within another week, a slimy film started to cover sections of the water along the banks, and an odor was soon detected. Soon, there were no more customers wanting to eat at those restaurants near that water edge. The swans and the geese had left, as did the tourists and the vacationers. Then, even worse, disease and sickness started to spread throughout the village. Quickly, the council called a special meeting, and they realized the seriousness of their error in judgment. And they hired that older gentleman back that had kept the spring waters clear. And within a few weeks, that river of life began to clear up. The restaurants reopened and the tourists returned, and new life came to the village once again. You know, this story is more than just an idle tale. It carries with it a vivid and relevant analogy directly related to the times in which you and I live. What that gentleman kept the waterways free and clear meant to that village is similar to what Christians mean to the world. We Christians may seem feeble, needless, unimportant, and small to the vast world, but God help any society that attempts to exist without the Christian influence. We are Christ's ambassadors. We are assigned the position of influencing and impacting our world, not unlike that old gentleman did for that village. Jesus calls his followers to be a front line militia. Nowhere do we get the impression that Jesus wanted us to live in isolation, separated from the world. It is impossible to truly live, truly free for the kingdom in private. We are called to a social agenda, an outward expression of God's principles. We are called to make a difference by influencing and impacting the world around us. Jesus says we are the light of the world. The dictionary defines the light as a source of illumination. First, what does light do? It dispels darkness. Christians, reflecting the light of Christ, bearing his light, dispel spiritual darkness. The progress may seem slow, but the results are apparent. Second, light reveals. Have you ever walked into a dark room and you don't know what's there? Then suddenly, when the light switch is on, the contents of the room is revealed. As Christ's presence in our world, we become his instruments to reveal his truth to a world in darkness. And third, light awakens. We are to be the light of the world, awakening men and women to the truth of the kingdom's arrival, awakening society to the presence of God. And the fourth thing that it does, it warns. In the same sense that a lighthouse warns the dangerous waters to a ship, or a police car's flashing lights warns of a policeman coming through traffic, Christians warn of impending danger to the world. God has called us to influence our world. Maybe that older gentleman that kept the springs clear and clean was not seen very much, but his role meant survival to the people in that village. Likewise, our role as light bearers means the survival in our world. We aren't called to save the world, but we are called to make a difference. We can't do everything, but we can do something. And what we can do, we ought to do, and that is what being a light is all about. So with that, I want to remind you, life happens, let's enjoy it. And remember that little song that we all would sing as children, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. And let your light shine. God bless and good night.